Ladies and gentlemen, as you've been aware in the news, the government has removed jury trials for sentences 3 years and below. Now, a right to a fair trial does not depend upon a jury. The right to a fair trial depends upon the facts which the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So, the public must be aware that your right to a fair trial begins effective immediately the moment the public body, whether it's the police or any other public body, first makes contact with you. Your right to a fair trial does not start when the trial starts. Your right to a fair trial does not start when you're in a police station or when you've been arrested. Your right to a fair trial begins effective immediately when that public body first makes contact with you at any stage. And the public should record every single statement or facts that occurs from that point and present it in court as an affidavit of facts, because then that becomes the judgment of the court. That's why it's so imperative that you record the police in their duty. And then, if possible, you can transcribe the recording video, and then you can present that also as evidence, and that becomes the judgment of the court. So, ladies and gentlemen, the government is right to try and clear the backlog of cases because that is in the interest of justice. However, we are concerned about these single judges because we, the Moorish Society, has experienced and witnessed criminal acts, illegal acts committed by judges. And for some reason, judges seem to think their judicial discretion applies to them personally. In the first instance, ladies and gentlemen, judicial discretion does not apply to the judge. It is for giving the effect to the will of Parliament, not to the will of the judge. And far too often in the single judges' court, the judges been using their judicial discretion to the adverse interest of justice to suppress unlawful and criminal acts committed by the state or other public bodies. That's the first issue that we have concerns about these single judges. The second thing is, ladies and gentlemen, West Midlands Police in the area of Birmingham, England, the United Kingdom, brought a racist, malicious prosecution against myself personally. At the end of the Crown prosecution summing up their case, I submitted to the judge that I had no case to answer. I submitted this. Do you know what this single judge told me, ladies and gentlemen? He said, no matter what I say, I had a case to answer. No matter what I told him, I had a case to answer, ladies and gentlemen. The Crown prosecution brought no law or evidence to support that law in their prosecution, in their case. And I argued that in front of the judge. I was representing myself. So the case went on for it to be decided by a jury of 12, ladies and gentlemen. And they found me not guilty. In fact, they asked the prosecution, where is the law? And the Crown prosecution could not provide to the jury the actual law which they were applying to prosecute me, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe this? Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? So how was the police able to bring a prosecution without no evidence and without a law? And how was the Crown Court allowed this application to go through without law or evidence to support that law? Do you see what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, how serious this is? The corruption that can occur where the state commits crimes against your person and then is suppressed through these criminal judges who make these unauthorized illegal decisions to suppress the criminal states committed, the criminal acts committed by the state. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all very well saying that the judiciary is independent. However, it is not independent if you have a judge who is making unauthorized and illegal decisions to the adverse interests of justice, to conceal and suppress unlawful and criminal acts committed by the state against citizens of this realm. That is not an independent judiciary. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are serious concerns about single judges in court. Very serious concern. And if this is the way the government is going to go, then they need to put in serious safeguards in the public interest and not just simply dismiss the jury and leave us open to corruption by these judges. Ladies and gentlemen, a copy of this post will be sent to His Majesty's government or the Home Office so that they can understand the serious injustices that can occur with this decision. We are the Moorish Society.